Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, we're going to be ranking all 18 hypercharges in the game right now, from the very worst all the way up to the very best, so you guys know which ones to buy when you can, with coins or with gems if you want to be a dirty gemmer like myself. And of course, if you think about gemming any of those hypercharges, make sure to use the credit code. Mine would be greatly appreciated, which is code SPEN. But anyways, let's get into this ranking then. So to begin with, at number 18 as the worst hypercharge in the game, it is still Pearl's hypercharge called Pyrolytic. So all this does is it just makes Pearl's super, I don't think it makes it much bigger, but it just makes it fiery. But it's just very counterintuitive because it actually knocks them out of her super. And yeah, the hypercharge just isn't good with her. Just never get this one. It's just terrible. So before we get into today's video, just want to give a huge shout out to Z League for sponsoring today's video. Today's sponsor is doing a huge giveaway. They're giving away a free Tesla. You guys don't want to miss out on this. It's this app called Z League. I've been using this app for a while to find people to play with on Brawl Stars and grind those trophies. The LFG feature is pretty cool. It allows you to scroll through hundreds of players, and it allows you to find players very similar to your level. And a cool tip for you Brawl Stars players is just to simply put your trophies and also your highest rank in the playstyle section, so it's a lot easier to filter through the players. But the best thing about Z League has to be the tournaments you can sign up for free and win Z coins to be redeemed for cool prizes. The cool part about their tournaments is that anyone can win because it matches you fairly against other players by some matchmaking algorithms. There's also plenty of opportunities to make new friends and of course chat with them, so you can find the ultimate trophy grinding partner. And of course, there's a lucrative shop where you can win lots of cool prizes like PlayStation gift cards, scuff controllers, and a lot more. Z League are turning free, and to thank the community, they're giving away a Tesla for free, which is absolutely insane. And there'll be one lucky winner, so there's loads of ways to enter for free. All you have to do is literally just play with a teammate, and you can earn a bunch of entries. So go check out the details of this insane giveaway in the description below, and I'll see you guys in Z League. So next up at number 17, we have Charlie's hypercharge. So whether you hit the hypercharge or miss it, spiders will spawn out. This got indirectly nerfed because the spiders gadget got nerfed in HP quite a fair amount, so this actually got even worse than before. I thought it was a bit underrated before, but still, just spawning spiders doesn't really do too much, especially with them only having 1400 HP now. So I don't think it really makes her super better because her super already is just so broken, so I wouldn't really recommend picking up this hypercharge. Next up at number 16, we have Miko's hypercharge called Sound Check. So this hypercharge actually is okay because you get a stun from it, which of course any type of stun is really good. It allows you to confirm kills, but the big problem with this hypercharge is just it's pretty awkward to use his super in general. You've got that kind of delay from when you actually press it to when you go up in the air. I think it's like 1 or 2 seconds, which often gets you killed. But not only that, well, every brawler in the game, you can just use your hypercharge super straight away and then use your just normal attack to get value out of the hypercharge with the stat boosts. But with Miko, if you use your hypercharge super and the hypercharge at the same time, you're going to run out of the hypercharge by the time you landed. So I don't really like that about him, and just makes me feel his hypercharge is pretty weak. I'd have actually liked his hypercharge to have something to do with his reload speed because of course that's what he needs the most right now. So next up at number 15, we have Jesse's hypercharge called Scrappy 2.0. So this hypercharge actually is pretty good in itself because it gives the Scrappy turret an extra 50% HP, an extra 20% damage. But the big negative with this is that it takes Jessie forever to get her hypercharge turret. You'll probably get maybe 1, maximum 2 hypercharges throughout a whole game, and that's if the game goes to full distance as well. And that's of course one thing you got to look at when you look at hypercharges. So for me, it's not really worthwhile because you'll never actually get the hypercharge turret. Next up at number 14, we have Bull's hypercharge called Jewels of Steel. So this hypercharge is actually pretty good because of course he's a tank. He can automatically charge his super from taking damage, and it also reduces your damage when you hypercharge super by 80%. So it can be really good in Brawl to get those aggro plays. I just think the meta doesn't really favor Brawl so much right now, so it's definitely a lot more further down in my rankings than it probably was before. And also you got brawlers like Charlie that can just completely shut down Brawl. I think people just learn how to counter these aggressive brawlers, you know, Cordelis as well. It's a lot of shutdowns to Brawl super in general, pretty predictable, so I just don't really like his hypercharge that much. But again, it can be very viable in game modes like Brawl, where you can just play like a headless chicken and just charge that hypercharge up so quick. The next up at number 13, we have Crow's hypercharge called Utility Knives. So I think I would actually put this hypercharge probably like second last, but I know you guys in the comment section will be like, well, this is underrated. Well, I think the hypercharge in itself is actually pretty good, but it takes forever to get it, like forever. Just like Jesse, you're never gonna get this Hypercharge. From the games I've played in Power League, I could never get it. The problem is that it does have a lot of potential. You know, game modes like high stiff, they leave you alone on high safe. You're gonna deal 50% to the high safe with one click of a button. So I feel like it has potential, but again, if you're never gonna get it throughout the game, what's the point of even having the Hypercharge? Next up at number 13, we have Leon's Hypercharge called Limbo. So I feel like to begin with, this might be a little bit underrated. Maybe once we learn how to play Leon again, especially with the Hypercharge, he'll probably go up in the rankings. But for now, I think this is steady because it still takes Leon a long time to cycle 2 Hypercharges in itself. And I just feel like a lot of the time, because the Hypercharge doesn't actually last the full duration of the super. So of course, Leon's super lasts actually longer than his Hypercharge. It's not really the best, if you get what I mean, in comparison to other supers where you can just get a click of a button and get the full Hypercharge value straight away. But again, I think it's underrated and definitely helps Leon a lot in the meta. Okay, so jumping into the 11th best Hypercharge in the game right now, I went with Colt's Hypercharge called Dual Wielding. So this Hypercharge in itself isn't really too unique or actually that strong. The Hypercharge super is just a bigger Colt super, which will of course help you get more damage. I just really like the stat boost from this. The extra 30% speed and 30% damage really goes hand in hand with Colt, and it's actually pushed him above brawlers like Brock even before his recent buff. So I think it's a little bit of an underrated one, and I actually like it. I think it pairs really well with him. So jumping into the 10th best Hypercharge in the game right now, I went with Jackie's Hypercharge called Seismic Event. So with Jackie's super, it will slow enemies around them for 1.5 seconds, and it's actually a pretty big radius, so you're able to close them down with that slow and take them down much quicker. And the reason why it's so good, again, because on tanks you automatically charge up your Hypercharge. So I've just seen Jackie's in Brawl, for example. It's so annoying facing off against a Hypercharge, because what they'll do, they'll just brainlessly walk up the map, spam their attack button, just as long as they get that one Hypercharge, and then the Hypercharge will just get you a team wipe and score your goals. So for me, it's a very strong Hypercharge, especially in the right hands. So jumping into the 9th best Hypercharge in the game right now, I went with Shelly's Hypercharge called Double Barrel. So again, just like Colt's Hypercharge, it isn't too inventive, and actually the Hypercharge super itself isn't too strong. It's just a wider super. I just really like the stat boost with this as well. It really pairs well with her, especially if you pop clay pigeons as well. Getting that extra 25% damage is crucial. And you can, of course, with Shelly, you're able to get supers so frequently, especially in a really tanky assassin meta. So you're actually able to get your Hypercharge a lot more, you're able to spam supers more, open up the map more. It's just a win. Shelly's really good with his Hypercharge. So jumping into the 8th best Hypercharge in the game right now, we have Rose's Hypercharge called Grasping Roots. So what this Hypercharge super does is it slows the opponents around your super. Of course, if you can get within your radius, which is really good. It allows Rose to catch up to the opponents and take them down much quicker, cycle her next super. And again, just like other tanks with the Hypercharge, she's able to cycle through her supers so fast, and her Hypercharge supers so incredibly fast. And even with the recent nerf, I still feel like this is one of the best Hypercharges in the game. Just all this slowing effects with Rosa just makes her so strong. Jumping into the 7th best Hypercharge in the game right now, I went with Spike's Hypercharge Blooming Seasons. So there's a couple of reasons why this is so strong. So of course, the super itself is quite boring, just like the first batch of Hypercharges, but the extra 20% radius is really good because it's like a mini lose super, because it covers so much of the map. You're able to cycle maybe another super with this Hypercharge. And again, because Spike just cycles supers so quickly anyway, because he's super versatile, good against everything, can charge supers really well against tanks as well, he's able to get his Hypercharge more. So of course, the brawler that cycles their Hypercharge more is just naturally going to get better, because the stat buffs and the Hypercharge super itself are just so broken in the game right now. So jumping into the 6th best Hypercharge in the game right now, we went with Colette's Hypercharge called Teen Spirit. So all this Hypercharge does, effectively, it doubles your damage with your super. So if you can hit an opponent once with your super, well, technically twice if you dash forward, back and forth, if you have the Hypercharge active, you actually just cycle your super again. So the reason why this is so good, because you just delete people. You can charge this super back so frequently, make so many game-changing plays. And of course in Heist as well, you can deal so much damage. With 2 supers, you can deal up to like 50% damage to the Heist safe, which is just crazy to me. So she can deal so much damage in this meta, and it's thanks to that Hypercharge. So jumping into the 5th best Hypercharge in the game right now, I went with Dynamite's Hypercharge called Boomer. So I've not actually seen too much Dynamite right now. The main reason is because of Fang and Edgar, but I think outside of that, especially if you can get the right bans in Power League, Dynamite will absolutely pop off, because this Hypercharge super is just broken. It deals like 7k plus damage, and then if one of your Dynamite sticks from the super land on top of someone, that would actually charge back his super as well and deal an extra like 2k damage. So essentially you can nearly one-shot near enough every single brawler inside of the game, and it's so easy even if you miss to deal so much damage as well. And if you hit one person with his super, you're guaranteed to get another one. So that's 2 hypercharge supers. The chaining potential and the team wipe potential with this hypercharge is absolutely insane. It actually don't take you too long as well to cycle through the hypercharges naturally as well. This is really underrated. I think once Fang and Edgar get nerfed, I think we could be seeing a Dynamite Male. Okay, so now jumping into the 4th best hypercharge in the game right now, I still went with Lou's hypercharge called Slushy Storm. So he effectively received a bit of a hypercharge nerf at last set balance changes. It takes 1 extra shot to get that super, so it takes longer to cycle through your hypercharges, but it's still just so incredibly strong. The instant freeze is crazy. You can still cycle another hypercharge super, effectively getting a confirmed kill onto one person, and of course if you can cycle it onto someone else, that's near enough a team wipe, which is just crazy. The turnaround potential with somebody's top hypercharges are what makes it so strong. And of course you have the stat boost as well, which just make him crazy broken. For me, it's still one of the best hypercharges in the game easily. Okay, so jumping into the 3rd best hypercharge in the game right now, we have Maisie's hypercharge called Aftermath. So in ladder right now, and in competitive to be fair, Maisie's just running rampant all over the meta, and it's because she can cycle through her hypercharges so much. It literally takes like 8 shots, I think, to charge her hypercharge, which is insane to me, especially once you get your first super. You can cycle so quickly with the slow with the star power, with your gadgets as well, disengage. You can just hit opponents so easily, especially as well if you hit multiple people with your super, you're gonna guarantee yourself a hypercharge in a few seconds. And of course with all of these tanks, aggressive brawlers in the meta, Maisie can shut them down as well. And the hypercharge super, it shoots out projectiles like Spike's or Hank's super. I thought it's gonna be terrible, but of course if you get really close to someone, you actually deal insane amounts of damage, and you're able to quickly cycle through 1, 2, maybe even 3 hypercharge supers within them 5 seconds. So for me, the potential and especially the team wipe potential with this hypercharge is insane. So make sure you master Maisie in this meta. Okay, so jumping into the 2nd best hypercharge in the game right now, we went with Edgar's hypercharge called Outburst. So what this does, after using your super, you get a super charging increase, I believe, and a reload speed increase. I don't know, it's worded a little bit weird in game, but I believe that's what it is. But anyways, it's broken. It's so incredibly strong. So if you watch my Power League streams or my 2nd channel, you'd see if I'm playing Edgar, I'm getting star player every single time. Even if I'm losing, I'm carrying, because this hypercharge is broken. So the reason why it's so good is because of the Let's Fly gadgets. So basically what you want to do, you pop the gadget straight away from spawn, you just try and engage with the highest HP brawler and cycle your next super, and then you can pop another Let's Fly gadget. So you've used 2 gadgets, yeah, but you've got a free hypercharge, and the team wipe potential is absolutely insane. That's the best thing about these hypercharges. The more team wipe potential, the better it's going to be, because of course you're literally deleting the whole team with this hypercharge. For me, it's insane. I've seen people even cycle like 5, 6 hypercharge supers in a row. That's how quickly you can cycle with Edgar. So yeah, I think it's completely broken. You definitely need to get this hypercharge. Okay, so jumping into the best hypercharge in the game right now, no surprises whatsoever. It is Fang's hypercharge called Dragon Kick. So if you don't know what this does, when you use your hypercharge super, you can go through walls. Well, some people might think, oh, that's not the strongest thing, right? Well, that was actually Fang's biggest counter, walls, because you couldn't change your super. It's actually a little bit awkward to maybe position yourself to super when there's a lot of walls, but now you could just brainlessly go through as many walls as you want, cycle through enemies, deal so much damage. And as well, the brainless thing about it, which I really don't like, is the stat boost. On top of that, you get 25% speed, 25% shield, and 20% damage, which is insane. And another broken thing about it is that fresh kick actually cycles your hypercharge more. So really, it's so important right now to try and get kills with your fresh kick star power, because then the hypercharge is filled up way faster. So many broken things about it. Everyone on Twitter and social medias are just complaining about it so much, and I don't even get the chance to play Fang in Power League because it's banned every single time. So for me, the best brawler in the game, and it all has to do with this broken hypercharge. So that's going to be it for today's video, guys. Hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know whether I underrated or overrated any of the hypercharges. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.